Hey Aaron, it's Wednesday, May 1st, which is also known as International Workers' Day. Now, International Workers' Day in the West is pretty much seen as a big, labor union group. But in communist countries, specifically old communist countries in the East, it was a huge deal. Also known as May Day, there used to be huge war games and huge demonstrations about how great communism is. And if there's one thing that I know about communism, it's that I hate communism. Now, this shouldn't be a real concern some 25 years after Western-style capitalism has been shown to be the economic system that can create the most wealth for the most people on the planet. But every time I see Jay-Z in a Che Guevara shirt or some hipster in a USSR shirt, I'm left to wonder why communism in popular culture seems to have this romanticism about it, some idea that maybe it's good. So real quick, I'm going to tell you about communism real quick. Now, a lot of high school students will say something stupid. They'll say that communism works in theory. But to quote former Yankees catcher and human quote machine Yogi Berra, in theory, there's no difference between practice and theory. But in practice, there is. So if we're going to look at whether communism would work in theory, let's take a little look at communist theory. The first work of real communist theory was the Communist Manifesto, which explained, essentially, two different points. First, the communist idea of history and what history was all about. And second, the evidence as to when a country would have gone through a communist revolution. And second, what a communist revolution would look like in a country. The Communist Manifesto is very clearly a communist handbook. It was written in 1848 by a German philosopher and economist and beard aficionado, Karl Marx. Wait, beard? That's better. Marx saw communism not as a political goal to strive towards, but as the eventual and inevitable conclusion of a history that he saw as primarily being defined as class struggle. Marx saw first the nobility take power away from the king, for instance the 1215 Magna Carta. Then in the Glorious Revolution he saw the aristocracy take power away from the nobility. Then in the American Revolution, Marx saw elites, landowners, factory owners, people who controlled what he called the means of production, taking power away from the aristocracy. Marx, reasonably perhaps, then concluded that regular working people, the people who worked that land and worked in those factories, would take power away from the people who owned those factories sooner or later. For the record, because it's going to come up, Marx called the people who owned factories the bourgeoisie and people who worked in them the proletariat. Now you might be saying that this has already happened here in America. Everyone in America, you might conclude, has an equal say in our political process. Everyone gets one vote every November for president or senator or congressman. But I should remind you that out of the 100 senators this country has, 61 of them are doctors. That includes lawyers, holders of the Juris Doctor degree. 72 of them have a postgraduate degree of some kind, and 99 out of the 100 senators we have gone to college and received some sort of 4-year degree. A quick thanks to high school graduate and U.S. Senator Mark Begich and the good people of Alaska for entirely ruining my point. Second, the revolution. Marx laid out a sort of 10-point plan when we can tell that a government has moved from socialism or from democracy towards communism. Some of these ideas were good, like universal education and modernizing the way agriculture was done. Some were, to use a technical term, crazy, like taking away inheritance rights and property away from anyone who happened to leave the country. But one of the most contentious points, and disastrous if you happen to own land, and the true bellwether of when a country is fully communist, is that all land is taken from individuals, from private landowners, and given to the government. True communist states believe the land cannot be privately owned. It would be held in common by all of the workers. Yeah, get it? Common, held in common, unist. Shut up. Now, it's important to note that Marx never led a revolution. The world would have to wait 69 more years until 1917 and Vladimir Lenin to start the Russian Revolution in, coincidentally, Russia. Now, Lenin's revolution was directly against the Tsar. There was no transition from the king to nobles to the aristocracy to the bourgeoisie to the proletariat that Marx suggested would be inevitable and happen. Russia in 1917, for instance, still had serfs. And for many people, the 1917 revolution was good. All the bellwethers of good change, medium household income, average lifespan, and number of people who are not serfs, went up. And then for a few decades, nothing interesting enough to mention in a 4-minute video happened until the leader of the Soviet Union becomes the not Russian, not beard-having, but mustachioed Joseph Stalin. Wait, mustache? Damn. Okay, so Stalin was what many historians would call very, very, very bad, but he of course did some good things, and I'm going to give him credit for that. Most notably deciding that, perhaps a little late, Adolf Hitler wasn't the best guy on the planet, and liberating Auschwitz and being a huge reason that Germany lost World War II. But Stalin was, and I'm still quoting here, very, very, very bad, killing about 20 million of his own people, 12 million of which were in these camps he set up for work and re-education, which was, for the record, 1 million more than all of the people who died in the entirety of the Holocaust. But before you go, oh yeah, Stalin sucked, but communism, revolution, yay! In Yugoslavia, Slobodan Milosevic and Tito killed about 1 million people. Pol Pot in Cambodia adds another 3 million to the list. Kim Il-sung in North Korea, 1.6 million. Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam, 200,000. And Mao Zedong in China with estimates as high as 78 million, which for the record is 7 times as many people as died in the entire Holocaust. Now, I'm not sure if communism will work in theory or if human nature is too big an obstacle to get around, but I do know that people who live in communist countries have a far, far greater risk of being killed by their own leaders than anywhere else in the world. And with that, vive la revolution, happy International Workers' Day. I will see you on Friday, and you will see me on Monday with your punishment. That was the longest period of my life that I had a mustache.